What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast, where today we're going to break down that big Illini win over Wisconsin that I told you guys all would happen, that Illinois was going to walk into Madison for Coach Bielema and get that win. But I had no idea it was going to be 34-10. That was a big time win for the University of Illinois football program. They haven't won in Wisconsin in many, many years. And this was Coach Bielema's homecoming. Not the first time he's played Wisconsin, but it is the first time he went back to the place where he coached and won so many games, Rose Bowl and everything else. His first time being on the opposite sideline. So I'm sure he had different types of emotions, but he kept it very professional, kept it all about the University of Illinois, not about himself. But this meant a lot to him. So we're going to break down and discuss that 34-10 win of the Illini over the Badgers, talk about keys of the game. And then after Wisconsin loses to Illinois, they up and fire Coach Chryst. And we're going to talk about, was that the right move to make? And talk about, have you seen the buyouts for these college football coaches that have been fired this year? It's been absolutely nuts. Don't even get us started on last year and the year before if you add on different coaches that get fired. But we're going to discuss all of that today. Make sure you like and subscribe to YouTube channel. Follow and rate on Apple and iTunes. Follow me at Coach_Steve72 on Twitter. Check out the Belly Up Media Network at bellyupsports.com to check out all the podcast blogs and everything there for everybody else. There's stuff there, not just sports related, something there for everybody. So go check all that out for me. Thumbs up, all that stuff on the YouTube channel goes a long way. Follow me and rating everything goes a long way as well. So if you guys can do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. So let's talk about that Illinois win over Wisconsin. They get the big 34-10 win. And to some people, to a lot of people, this is a upset because Wisconsin is still a very good football team that came in 2-2. Illinois came in at 3-1, who should have been 4-0 coming in, but that loss to Indiana does haunt them and haunts the fans. And they come into a hostile environment in Wisconsin, and this is a game that people only had circled because of Coach Bielema. This is a game that you had circled because it's his first time coming home, in a sense. Being a head coach there for a long time, winning lots of games. I think he's the second most winningest head coach in Wisconsin history, behind Barry Alves. And so this was going to be a lot of emotions for him. But I said the keys coming into this game was Illinois stopping the Wisconsin run. And if you let Mertz get hot, their quarterback for Wisconsin, you allow him to get hot and they have a run game, it's going to be a very long day. And you probably have to have Mertz beat you through the air, but you have to just let it happen. If he completes some passes, but you're controlling the run, that's okay. And at the beginning of the game, it seemed like Wisconsin was going to just continue to do what they did last year. You know, nickel and dime, chip here, chip there, and score. They had that, couple conversions early in the game, and then they had the big touchdown pass to the running back. And then Illinois comes out and goes 3 and out, or I don't know necessarily it was 3 and out, but they came out, didn't score, and Wisconsin got the ball back, came down the field and scored, so just, and then the second quarter, but, it was a little back and forth there, but it just felt like Wisconsin, there was a point where they felt like they could have, done some damage, but Illinois' defense came into this, and I'm not putting words into Coach Walter's mouth or anything like that. They came in saying, we're okay giving up certain downs. As long as they don't score, we're going to be fine. And that's the name of the game now in college football and in the NFL. Let's give up the yards, but we're not going to give up the points. The bend, don't break type of thing that everybody's taken that approach. Now, I'm not saying every defensive coordinator is okay giving up all these points or all these yards, They don't want to give up all those yards. It was up to them. They'd be like, we're only going to give up 100 yards this game, and we're going to give up 0 points. But it's just not realistic. You have to feel out a team because Wisconsin came out throwing early. They were play action. They were throwing little short passes. Illinois' defensive line played phenomenal. They had pressure up the middle that clogged it up, two gapping, and that 3-4 look, and they'd hop into their 4-2-5 look. And their defensive line did a very good job of getting hands-on. They were really good at getting pressure on Mertz when they needed to, and they were very good at tackling up front. And that's a big key. When your front defensive linemen and your front linebackers that you send on a 3-4, when they are able to clog up the middle, get any type of pressure, that is going to make a big difference in the game, rushing any type of passes. Mertz had that interception early on, and that really, when they were backed up, the interception for Illinois really put them in good field goal range. And when Wisconsin scored early on, like I said, it felt like Wisconsin was going to start to do that nickel and dime, get 7 points here or maybe a field goal here. And that's what it felt like. But it also felt like the defense was right there. Last year when this was happening, there were a couple plays here and there, but you just felt Wisconsin slowly, you could feel them taking over. Like you could just feel it. You could feel the momentum in there when they came to the University of Illinois. This time around, you felt, okay, that you could, if you rewatch the game, you could see that the defense for Illinois is really feeling out what Wisconsin's trying to do. They know they have to stop the run. They're going to be okay giving up certain passes. They were really feeling that out, and you just felt like the defense was different. The secondary was flying all over. The defensive line, like I said, they really got hands on. The offensive lineman got extension. They drove back Wisconsin's offensive line, and it's hard to say that about a Wisconsin team. When you think about Wisconsin, and especially Coach Bielema days, that wasn't the case. And the defensive line for Illinois has played well the past couple of games. And this one, they really, if you can push back Wisconsin's offensive line, if you're commanding a double team and you can control that and create a pile to allow your linebackers to make a play or your defensive end to fly in and make a play, that's amazing. And that is what Illinois' defense did. The linebackers were very physical. Their corners and safeties were very physical. They came up and tackled. They were physical with them off the line. That first quarter really was feeling out Wisconsin and what they were trying to do and really see how they could attack them. And Coach Walters, if you watch him on the sideline, now all coaches, they get intense, they'll get after it, but there's a lot of times where he does that. There's a lot of times where he is calm. He's reading it. He's really still, you have a game plan coming in, but when he sees that, he's still adjusting. He still is game planning into that moment. And that's what he did there. It just kind of felt like, to me, watching it from the outside perspective, looking in, not being in the meeting room, is that's what they were doing. They knew they could run the ball. That's what they're known on. But if they could control the line of scrimmage and make sure that doesn't happen, that really puts Mertz in a bind of now they got to rely on the pass game that they necessarily don't want to do. They can do it, but that's not really what they want to do. And it just seemed like Wisconsin was starting to do that because, they think we're going to run the ball, we're going to do this. Wisconsin, you're built on running the football, and that's what teams know you for, so that's what Illinois wanted to take away. And they forced, Mertz to have the 2 interceptions, and then they did cause a fumble later on. But one of the amazing stat lines that you're going to hear, let's just go through Wisconsin's stats. They had 208 total yards, 206 through the air, 2 rushing yards, 2. Now that's from getting any type of sack, and getting hit behind the backfield a couple of times. But Wisconsin tried to run the ball 24 times. They like to run the football. They got 2 yards, 2. They threw the ball 33 times. They were 17 of 33. They averaged 6.2 yards per completion, 2 interceptions, and 1 touchdown. And they had 3 turnovers. They had 2 interceptions and the fumble. And then Wisconsin also had 10 penalties for 78 yards. But I'm going to repeat that, 2 rushing yards. Who can say they have held a Wisconsin team to 2 rushing yards? This defense for Illinois has been lights out insane. Coach Walters and Coach Bielema have dialed up a great, phenomenal defense. And to do that to a Wisconsin team is unheard of. I don't know if that's ever happened. I don't know if it'll ever happen again, but it's crazy. Illinois' defense right now is number 1 scoring defense. They're number 3 in total defense, and they're number 3 rush defense. And that's the nation's lowest opponent passer rating in the country. They have 12 interceptions, or they're number 12 in interceptions, and they're number 15 in sacks. So getting sacks on Mertz takes away some of those rush yards, but still, 2. It doesn't matter hitting the quarterback. It doesn't matter anything else like that. To me, when you're playing Wisconsin team and you only allow them to have 2 yards, that is insane. And that defense has played lights out. Coach Walters, they gave him an extension last year. We're going to have to really dig into some boosters' pockets in order to keep him, because this is a hot commodity. If they keep going like this the rest of the way, it's going to be hard to keep him because another school is going to try to take him. But we're not going to worry too much about that. The defense was absolutely lights out. And then on the flip side, the offense, had to feel out Wisconsin. There's a couple of drives there that stalled at the beginning. They got down near the red zone. It was a 4th down. They threw the ball up, got a pass interference, so they had another chance at it. What was crazy was they were holding on to Chase Brown for a little bit, but you're going to hold him down so long. He had 25 carries, 129 yards, and a rushing touchdown. He had that big 49-yard run later on in the game where the offensive line was really feeling out Wisconsin's defensive line, who was playing well at the beginning, but then just slowly Illinois just started to really wear them down. DeVito was 18 of 24, 167 yards, but he ran in the ball 3 times. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. He had that quarterback sneak at the red zone and had other ones later on. And this is what I'm talking about. And when you watch DeVito during this game, there was time the pocket broke down. He can escape, but he can move around in the pocket and still throw a ball on the run and be accurate. And I said this, before the season, this is something that Illinois was missing last year. Now, I know that the receivers were young last year. We're still figuring all that out. Who are they going to throw to? Who's going to be the guy? Right now, Illinois is doing just fine without having, quote unquote, the guy, because last game against Chattanooga, the wide receivers really started to get more open. And this one, the very same thing. Hightower had 59 yards receiving. Pat Bryant had 51. Isaiah Williams had 31. Mark Chase had 20. And then if you have a 129-yard rusher, and then Tommy DeVito can go out there and get you some rushing touchdowns. Like, these are the things, and if your defense is doing what it needs to do, you have all this trust in them. This is the formula for Illinois to win. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be always flashy. These wide receivers have to start getting some confidence because they have a tough game next week in Iowa, and it just continues to get tougher when they play Minnesota later on, and a couple other Big Ten schools in Michigan State and Michigan. It's going to continue to get tough. But this was a game that, Illinois could be 5-0 right now. They're 4 points away technically from being Indiana. They lost them by 3. They're a play or 2 away from winning. They could be sitting at 5-0 right now. But being Wisconsin is huge for them, to looking towards getting to a bowl game, because this was a game where I said, yeah, maybe they could beat Wisconsin. But people looking at this before the season would say Wisconsin is not losing to Illinois. That's what they're all going to say. But having wide receivers get open, Hightower getting open, Bryant getting open, I'm telling you, confidence in this offense that continues to grow, that continues to get better. When they have a game like Chattanooga, I don't care. People commented on my last one saying, oh, it was just Chattanooga, calm down. No, you're watching all these FCS schools beat these big-time Division I's and these smaller Division I's beating Power Fives. You got to take wins what you can get, and it's all about building the confidence and the trust with the quarterback, with the receivers, with the offensive line, who continues to grow and get better. And this is exactly what you wanted to see. Hightower, and then look at these big chunk plays. Hightower's longest catch was 35 yards. Pat Bryant's longest one was 22. Isaiah Williams had a 13-yard one. Michael Merchase, the one catch here for 20 yards was a 20-yard catch. So those big chunk plays in certain situations is what you want to see. And so to really hold Wisconsin, yeah, Mertz had negative 22 yards from being hit. That really ruins their average. But their running back, Ches Museli, I'm going to say his name wrong, only had 16 yards. Isaiah Guerrero had 30 yards. These guys, they really held them. And Wisconsin just kind of abandoned the run game after a while. They had 24 attempts, but 7 were from Mertz, whether it was getting sacked, whether he was on the run. They just stuck to this pass game, and Illinois said, cool, you're going to pass it on us? You're not going to run it? Cool. But the offense is starting to really open up. It's really starting to find a groove. It's a brand new offense. It's not the same offense that we ran last year. You have new pieces put in. It's a new offense, and they're really starting to click. And when you get confident, you have a quarterback that can move, actually throw the ball and complete the ball. And obviously you have Chase Brown, who to me, if Illinois continues on this, is a Heisman he could win the Heisman. I don't know if he will, but he's going to have to be a Heisman finalist, in my opinion. And I said this, if the wide receivers can continue to do this and Tommy DeVito can really start to grasp the offense, Illinois is going to be a pain that you don't want to play. They're going to be the thorn that you just don't want to play. And it's slowly starting to happen before our eyes. And one cool thing is that Chase Brown tweeted, he said, "This is no upset. This is another win. We're on to the next one." And that is just a compliment into what Coach Bielema has brought into this Illinois program, a program that needed wins, a program that needed, culture put in. No offense to the old regime, but they needed a college culture brought in, and he's proven he can do this. Coach Bielema is going to be a hot commodity. We're talking about Coach Walters. He's going to be a hot commodity. Hopefully Illinois can keep these guys. I think Brett Bielema would want to stay, and this was just great for him, and he's already on to the next one. He wants to pack Iowa. He wants to be packed for that game, and so it's a great time to be an Illinois fan right now. From the basketball seasons now on to this one, as long as they continue it, because it does not get any easier next week. Playing Iowa on the 8th at home. That's going to be a night game. That's going to be a big-time game where another one for Coach Bielema because he played football at the University of Iowa. Then you have to have Minnesota, Nebraska, Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan, Northwestern. There is plenty of wins there for them for the bowl game. They're not getting too ahead of themselves. They said this is not an upset. We're moving on to Iowa. So just that mindset that they know where they are as a program, not looking too high, because last year when they would win, got a little bit high, got a little low. Even in the Coach Lovie Smith era, that's kind of what would happen. And so it's going to be really interesting to see the type of path they take in this culture building that where they move on and play these next couple of guys. So it was a really fun game to watch. Even to go back and rewatch it was really fun to really see them battle, compete with Wisconsin. And again, 2 rushing yards. That's amazing. So that was the keys to that one. We'll have a different one about keys to Iowa. But after Illinois did beat Wisconsin on Sunday afternoon, evening, I would say evening, they came out and Wisconsin, it was reported that they fired Coach Paul Chryst. I'm going to say Chryst, and they fired him. And it was a little bit of a shocker to me. Just because I know Wisconsin was 2-3, they're not where they want to be at. I know last year was not the best for them, that they kind of wanted to forget that. Looking at their time last year in 2021, going 9-4, which to me is a good year. They let's talk about last year, and then we'll get into firing this year. I know last year was not the best for them. They lost to Penn State at the beginning of the year in a close one, beat Eastern Michigan, and then they lost big to Notre Dame, and then they lost big to Michigan. Then they got on a run, beating Illinois, beating Army, beating Purdue, beating Iowa, beating Rutgers, beating Northwestern, beating Nebraska. Then they lose to Minnesota. Then they beat Arizona State in a bowl game. So they ended up going 9-4. 6-3 in conference. Now I know Wisconsin has high standards, mainly put up there by Barry Alvarez and Brett Bielema. And the COVID year, they went 4-3. So, I mean, there's just, and we'll go through his whole records as his time at Wisconsin, because he's had a good run. He had a good run there. I think they're just so used to saying we're going to win Big Ten championships. We're going to get to a big time bowl game. So they fire him, and they are going to pay him $16.4 million. And so before I really dive into what I think about the firing, he is now the 5th Power 5 school to be fired. There is combined over $60 million payouts this year. Coach Chryst from Wisconsin is getting paid $16.4 million to leave. Nebraska is paying Scott Frost $15 million to leave. Georgia Tech is paying Coach Collins $11.37 million to leave. Colorado fired their coach today, also Coach Dorrell. They're paying him $8.7 million to leave. And then when Arizona State fired Herm Edwards, they're paying him $9.4 million So whoever does these agents for these college football coaches, we all need to get on that boat, because to get paid all that money to leave, well, it's just crazy that's what they're getting paid to leave. That's just absolutely crazy. But we're going to talk about the firing of Coach Paul Chryst. He was the offensive coordinator for Coach Bielema for years at Wisconsin, and then he ended up going on to be the head coach at Pitt later on when Coach Bielema left. And then when the Wisconsin job opened up later on, he became the head coach there in 2015. At his time at Wisconsin, he was 67-26. And to me, that's a good record. 67-26, 8 years, I guess almost 8.5 years at Wisconsin. His time at Wisconsin, he is 6-1 in bowl games. He's won a Holiday Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl, Pine Stripe Bowl. He went to a Rose Bowl in 2019 and they lost. Duke's Mayo Bowl, they won that one during the COVID year. Then they won the Las Vegas Bowl last year. Again, 67-26. During his time at Wisconsin, I'm going to go down his records. He was the head coach there in 2015. He went 10-3, 11-3, 13-1, 8-5, 10-4, 4-3, 9-4, and right now they were saying at 2-3. They're going to have their defensive coordinator become the interim head coach, and I love the win for Illinois over Wisconsin. And there's some coaches I never want to be them to be fired, but when you look at situations like a Scott Frost situation, you talk about when is the firing going to happen, not if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And you've seen this with Nebraska, where they fire Bo Pelini, who has similar type of thing going on here, like Coach Chryst did at Wisconsin. They fire him, and then they get a new coach for 2 years or so, and then they get Scott Frost, and things have not been the best. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I'm wondering if that's the same thing that's about to happen to Wisconsin. Now, they want to win national championships. They want to beat Ohio State. They want to win the Big Ten. They want to go to all this stuff. Coach Bielema had set that precedent too, as well as Coach Barry Alvarez, who was there for many, many years, long time. He became the head coach there in 1990, and then Coach Bielema took over in 2006. Now, maybe Coach Bielema had too much set precedent there. So for Coach Bielema in 2006, started being the head coach of Wisconsin. He went 12-1, 9-4, 7-6, 10-3, 11-2, 11-3, then 8-5. Coach Bielema's time at Wisconsin, he was 68-24. He left because there was, different things. And I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but reported about money and hiring coaches. Barry Alvarez was the athletic director. He was kind of, over Coach Bielema's head there. And then when Coach Bielema left, Coach Barry Alvarez has coached a couple bowl games, being athletic director and just stepping in and coaching. So that part's a little tough. But had set that precedent. Coach Bielema won a Capital One Bowl. He won the Champ Sports Bowl. He went to a Rose Bowl for a couple of times. He's won a Big Ten championship. And so, had these really good runs. But even if you look at Coach Bielema's time, they didn't win national championships. I don't know, looking at Coach Alvarez's record either. So those are the type of things where they just win a lot of games. They'll get some big championships here and there. They'll get to some big-time bowl games. The last time Wisconsin won a Big Ten championship was in 2011 and 12. Those were back, way back in the day. And so you're just, and I'm kind of going all over the place here, but this is similar to what you see in certain programs. They all want to win the national championship. Wisconsin has not won a national championship since 1942. So even Alvarez didn't win a national championship. And so I'm looking at this, this right here. And a guy that's gone 67-26, you decide to get rid of him is because you're 2-3 right now. I mean, you were 9-4 last year after a 4-3 time during COVID. You went on a big run last year. And looking at Wisconsin's schedule, it's not like, you're losing to, I mean, maybe they were that mad because of Illinois from the past, thinking about it from the past, and that's what made them mad. I mean, you beat Illinois State. Now, they maybe should have beat Washington State, but Washington State, because of Mike Leach getting that program back built up, maybe that's what kind of drew that. Then you beat New Mexico State. Then you lose to Ohio State, who is on a mission for the college football playoff. They have fast receivers, just look way faster than Wisconsin. And then you lose to Illinois. Like, they could have gone on a run. You have Northwestern, Michigan State, Purdue, Maryland, Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota. They could have made another run, and they maybe could have ended the season on, no offense to any of those teams, it is quite possible they could have ended on a win streak of winning every single game, and end up going 10-3, or they can go 9-4 again, which is a very good record that a lot of teams won. So to me, I necessarily don't agree with this firing of Wisconsin firing coach Paul Chryst, or Chryst. I apologize if I keep saying his name wrong, but I don't think they should have fired him. Because remember, the grass is always going on their side. Now, their defensive coordinator is a great defensive coordinator. I think he'll be okay. But now you're paying a guy $16 million to leave who has won games, who could turn it around. I do think that Wisconsin, you talk about offenses evolving, and Wisconsin's always been that I formation. They still get in shotgun and run some things. Coach Bielema type days, but Coach Bielema was more I formation, under center, pound the ball. But he has made adjustments to getting into a shotgun looking type offense, but still wants to run the ball, still wants to find, the pro style type stuff put into a shotgun or a pistol. And I think Wisconsin has never really adapted to that. But honestly, if you recruit the right players, you don't have to adapt to that. One thing I think they could have done better the past couple of years was look at the guys they had. They could still go all I formation and run the football, but they could still get into try to do what Illinois does. And so I know some people think they're too old school, but then they say, look at Iowa. They always do it and they win. But look at Iowa this year. They can't score points. I know there's teams out there like North Dakota State that still go under I formation and do all that stuff. But when you look at certain teams that have adapted and they start to change what they're doing, evolve what they used to do into new age stuff, like Alabama. Alabama was the same way. Look how they've adjusted. Coach Dino Babers was a up-tempo, snap the ball every 10 seconds coach. This year he adapted where they could slow it down a little bit, and they're undefeated. Iowa hasn't adapted their offense, and they are having a hard time scoring. Michigan was like that. Now they've kind of adapted where they could go that spread type of stuff, but still do pro style type run stuff. And you can go on and on and on. And I'm not saying they have to go air raid. I'm not saying they go full spread. But I think if you don't have those same big hoss players to always run I formation, you have to adapt that. I think he could have done that. But that's just for me now watching every single Wisconsin game from the outside looking in. And I think this firing was premature. Now, if they were 0-5 right now, maybe, or 0-6, maybe, whatever it would be, maybe. But looking at all the wins he has, like, the grass isn't always going to be green on their side. They should have looked at Nebraska. Grass isn't always green on the other side. So I don't agree with the firing of him. People have already put out there, Coach Bielema did this, but he and Coach Bielema get along. That was his offensive coordinator. So I just don't agree with the firing of him from Wisconsin. So it's going to be curious to see how Wisconsin goes from here on out. Without their head coach, it's going to be tough, but I don't agree with the firing. But it happened. He'll find another job, but you're paying him $16 million to leave. That is crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy. But that wraps up this episode. Illinois gets the big win over Wisconsin. Then Coach Paul Chryst gets fired, and hopefully he'll find a new job, which he will. Just see what capacity. Maybe he'll go to Nebraska. Who knows? But that wraps up this episode. Like and subscribe to YouTube channel. Follow and rate on Apple and iTunes. Follow me at Coach_Steve72 on Twitter. Check out all the affiliates in the description below. Check out all the other episodes. Thanks, guys, again for watching and or listening. This is Coach Steve, and we will see you next time.